And I'm watching and I'm like, what the hell? Like, where'd he go? Like, freaking ghost? Like, and again, it's so deceiving because it literally, there's little coulees and drops and ditches and stuff. Like, these deer can navigate and you'll never see them.
Well, that's why I took so long on the next stalk, is because I'm like, he's here. Like,
well, because I watched you, you're like, I'm like, dude, you're on him. Like, like.
And I would have drilled him right.
I mean, he was
had he been
right there.
Yep.
And we're back. HUNTR Podcast.
It's crazy how fast that happens.
The clap or HUNTR Podcast?
Both. What was that?
Ding, ding.
Oh.
There's a meeting.
I hear that every once in a while. Like when I'm listening back to our podcast, sometimes it's like a meeting invite. It's like,
there is work going on around us. We're just not there.
It's happening.
Episode 17. Last week, working with Marshall Johnson from the Mule Deer Foundation. Getting excited about mule deer hunting in the Dakotas.
Mule deer mode, dude. If I look tired today, it's because I barely slept last night.
So you've been on this trip. So we've since that last podcast, we have secured a piece of private ground to hunt mule deer on in South Dakota via Base Camp Leasing. Yep. So we've got a piece of ground, 1,200 acres. Don't know. We're going by what the landowner tells us, which there's deer and pronghorn on it. Mm-hmm. We don't know anything else. Mm-hmm. But then
we have maps.
Yeah, that lights the fire. No pun intended, because they're in a drought. But that lights the fire to then say, can we get more private land?
Yeah.
And so,
well, I was feeling a little uncertain about. I mean, 1,200 acres is nothing to balk at, but it's one of the smaller tracts in that area. Like most of those landowners around there have several thousand.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, when you commit to a piece when you commit to a trip like that, you want to make sure you have as many options as possible. And in most cases, we would, because there is a ton of public there. But the unfortunate thing is non-residents can't hunt public until October 1, which is why we're confined to public or private land.
What did you think of that, the process on the website the other day? I made it pretty easy.
For South Dakota?
Like, click this. But wasn't it confusing? First of all, I couldn't tell if sometimes they were buttons or not.
Well, I still don't understand why we applied, but basically the licenses are in the mail.
I don't understand why. I don't understand why it was worded that way. I also don't understand why there's like different regions if you can just apply for the statewide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we had to apply for that part of Hardin County.
No, we didn't. We applied just statewide. We bought the statewide thing.
Oh, so we didn't have to say anything.
Mm-mm. But they have like a East and West River.
Yeah,
like,
that was confusing.
I don't know if that applies more for like public or something.
Maybe for I don't know.
It was weird.
Doesn't make any sense. Well, and then I was kind of like, well, while we're there, like, why don't we potentially shoot an antelope?
Yeah.
Right. And it was like Marshall told us, he's like, yeah, I don't even know if you can get an antelope tag as a non-resident in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And so we hunting around, the South Dakota site for it. Can't find anything. End up stumbling across the harvest statistics, which then leads me to this archery button, which then says, oh, yeah, there is unlimited archery tags for antelope in South Dakota.
Oh, it is unlimited?
That's what it says for non-residents and residents. And apparently we apply in July. So we'll apply in July for that. But, it is weird. Now we know that they're working on some improvements there to make that site better. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know when that's going to be. But it definitely is. It's odd. And when you kind of look at it, and we talked about this with Marshall last week, ultimately, like, that's the number one resource that people are going to figure out, like, what can I hunt, when can I hunt it, and where can I hunt it, and it's not a good resource at all. Mm-hmm. And that hurdle there, I think, deters a lot of people from doing kind of what we're doing, which is, like, let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's get everything in order, and let's get out of our comfort zone and go hunt. Mm-hmm. And if somebody, who's especially not technical savvy went to that website, no doubt they would have threw it in 10 minutes and be like, screw this, I'm not going there. Yeah,
you just got to do a little work for it. But let's have the fun. It's kind of annoying that like the site isn't as straightforward, but I mean, whatever. We called the people that, they don't run the website necessarily, but they work.
It's like the licensing agents and
work
stuff
for the State Department. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we've been, It's been fun just branching out and trying to get in touch with landowners. And I'm telling you right now, like, dude, it's all in the pitch. Like, if you can come across as like non-threatening and like,
is that why Weston's 0 for the century?
Maybe some of it's literally like where you're at. But I mean, dude, I'm 1 for 1.
That's pretty good
in South Dakota,
minus the non-callbacks.
Yes.
Yeah.
But everybody I've talked to.
Isn't it funny? I bet a lot of the people you call still have answering machines.
And landlines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even more surprising that I can find their numbers.
And rotary phones.
I'm not like paying for a service. I just using like so I have their address from Onyx. I have their name.
Go to White Pages.
I just Google them. I don't know if they're White Pages or what, but I just
find a number.
There's a number. Sometimes there's more than one number.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, in addition to this is why I didn't sleep last night. Is in addition to our lease that we are, are paying for and stuff. I did get in touch with another landowner in pretty close proximity to our lease that owns 5 or 6 times as much ground as our lease, and sounds like there's a potential for us to get out there as well for a fee, but a very reasonable one.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's food on it, alfalfa.
A lot of alfalfa.
It's key.
Sounds like that. A couple other hunters, but I mean, dude, there's so much ground out there. I'm really anxious to see. Even this landowner told me, he's like, yeah, I mean, so he's like, there's mule deer. He's like, not any giants. I don't know what their
terminology is of giants is.
But I have seen that. I mean, I've been watching
There's a lot of good bucks I'm seeing in South Dakota. I'm not seeing near the size, at least just offhand.
It's not Utah or Colorado.
No. Well, even, in North Dakota, we came across some legit 170 plus mule deer, though on private.
Yeah.
We saw them.
Yeah.
They exist. I assume they exist in South Dakota. We're literally 2 hours from where we're going to be hunting in North Dakota. I don't know.
I don't know what we're getting into.
I thought you didn't sleep because you backed into Margie's new car.
No, I'm over that.
Is she over that? That's the question.
Yeah, she got over it pretty quick.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Guess I'm just pretty smooth.
I hope that one's going to buff out.
I'm forgivable.
I remember you damaging another vehicle at one point, and then my dad was
We never did tell him about that.
No, I don't think so. It was backed into a ditch, though, right?
Yeah. I guess, Steve, if you watch this podcast, I backed your truck into a ditch at one point.
In Kansas.
Minimal damage. But Jeremy's dad did know, so he's also guilty. He was with me. I backed in. I looked over at your dad. He's like, I won't freaking tell him. I was like, okay.
And then at some point that night, I think I caught you in the parking lot bending stuff back in underneath the truck. It's fine. I believe that's already been exchanged to a Ford dealer near you. No, I had a similar experience. It was actually, this is why it was so much worse. So yes, I also backed into my wife's vehicle. I was also like not even a half a cup of coffee deep, so I was struggling in the morning.
That's what I blame it on.
Yeah, no coffee. Tired. Well, mine was on November 7th.
Oh, see, you've got every excuse in the world then.
And I was, trying to get to the stand. I backed out.
Really? That's what you're doing?
Oh yeah, I was going hunting. I backed out, hit her vehicle. Instinctively, it was like, what the hell was that? Pulled forward, like ripped the fender and bumper off. And I remember going in, I was like, I think my truck just like jumped. And she's like, what the hell do you mean it just jumped? I was like, I don't know. I didn't have enough coffee yet.
I gotta go.
So like, should I still go hunting or, I didn't make it to the stand. And that was November 7th, which Bill Winke would say that's a magical day.
Uh-huh. You didn't make it to the stand?
No.
Because of that?
Yeah, I had to deal with this shit now.
I'd have dealt with that later.
Your bumper can wait.
Not important.
It's the rut.
Yeah, it's just a bumper.
It's just a bumper. Yeah. November 7th only comes around once a year. You'll have that, though.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that is funny, though, is like I've started to hear just when we're telling people about kind of like our access or what our plans are this year. And they're not like, they sound extremely elaborate, right? It's literally like Dakota trip, Kansas trip, as much as we can make happen in the middle. And they're like, man, how do you like get away with that? And I was like, I don't know, like my wife lets me, which is nice. Number one. And then it's like, it does take proper planning. Like we're not just out there saying, cool, we have
prioritize.
Yeah, we've got 50, what do we got? 6 or 7 states to hunt. It's not like we're like, cool, we got 6 or 7 states. We're leaving in September 1. We'll be back on December 31. Doesn't happen.
Yeah. Still seems like a the base camp leasing thing is interesting because, like, obviously those guys are a partner of ours, and we found a few places to hunt through them, and it's a great resource. I don't. It's like seems like we're always in this pursuit for like these just prime pieces of ground, and a few of them maybe make it into the base camp leasing program, but I just think that those prime pieces of ground, like people know.
People know. I mean, the outfitting business,
people know,
the local leasing thing. I mean, that's one of the things that we wanted to talk about this week is that, we use base camp leasing. I know that immediately there's people out there listening to this, they'll be like, Jesus, like, these guys gouge you 25, 30 bucks an acre, whatever. And it's like, that's what it all is. Like I don't care if you're using a system like base camp leasing or if you're just trying to go and knock on doors and like the market of hunting and demand for access has driven that price up. You can find the golden nugget every once in a while. They do exist. The South Dakota one may be one of those places that exist, but it's also, number one, it's ridiculously remote. I mean, that guy was talking about Hardin County being the number 3 largest county.
3rd largest, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said there's 1,100.
And 1,100 people in it.
That live there.
So there's not
only
there.
That, but we were looking this morning at how much of that ground in that county is tied up in like grazing.
Grazing associations and stuff.
And also.
And even public.
Public, which we can't hunt.
Yep.
So it takes, potentially a few hundred landowners that you could reach out to and reduces it to like a few dozen. Think about how many people, maybe it's not as much as another, more well-known state or something, but how many people... There's got to be at least a few dozen people making phone calls.
Even a base camp hasn't, and we talked about this with them at one point, they haven't really pushed or forged west, right? Base camp leasing is rooted in whitetail country.
Yeah.
Just what it is. The fact that like something like this comes up is like the peripheral of what they deal in terms of geographic area. But I think if you start to look about even our other leases or leases that we have of just people we know, like we pay a decent amount of money for them, but it's kind of like, what's it worth to you? Like if it's you and me and my dad hunting in Kansas, if we went with an outfitter, it would cost us $12,000 probably to do something like that. Whereas when we're doing it via leasing, by the time we divide it up, it's like $1,000 a piece.
You think it would cost $12,000?
I bet it's $3,000 to $4,000 to do a 7-day outfit hunt.
A piece, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and yes, there's more work, but that's obviously, number one, that's our style. Like, we want to be out there. We want to be learning the property and doing things. But I think the other thing is that, like, I don't have $12,000 to drop on us to go out for a week, and it takes out this is no knock against outfitters because I know you've been to them. I've been to a couple, but, like, it kind of sucks a little bit of the adventure fun out of it, and
all of it.
All of it?
Almost all of it.
Yeah.
Well, not the adventure in the sense it's like you can still go, and once you get there, it's an adventure.
Yeah.
And you can kind of do some prep and stuff.
And if you want to kill a big buck, like that's probably the way to do it.
That's the unfortunate thing about it is like we're putting in the work, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we have that's what we probably tired of hearing us say it at this point, but like you can't kill a big buck if he's not there. And these outfitters know where these big bucks are at because they're local and they're tying down the best pieces of ground in a lot of cases. Or, they're tied up in permit, whatever's happening.
Well, and they're paying a premium too. Like even if I say, and there are spots, I think some of our Illinois pieces, we paid $30 to $35 an acre. People fall out of their chair thinking like that's a lot of money on that. There are guys out there right now paying $15,000 to $25,000 for 200 or 300 acres in Illinois because they're going to outfit it and they're going to make that money back by guiding hunts on it. We're not doing that, right? We're just hunting it ourselves. But you have to understand that the reason that we have to pay 30 to 35 is because if we didn't, an outfitter could easily come in there and offer that person $7,000 for 80 acres and make their money back on it with 2 guys hunting it.
Yeah, there's more risk involved.
It's a business
with leasing ground or getting permission, just going without an outfitter because you don't know. Like we're doing the work, but dude, that's what makes it so much fun. Is I really enjoy the planning process for these hunts.
I do too.
Like, finding the piece of ground initially is one thing, but then scheming and trying to get information about the area. And like for this Dakota hunt, it's like, how do we talk to Marshall about the conditions? How do we get a camper locked down? How do we?
I probably wouldn't have known that they were in such a massive drought had we not talked to Marshall last week.
Like it's been raining like crazy here. Granted, we're hundreds of thousands probably of miles away.
Millions?
1.6 light years.
Feels like that by the time we get deep into the night drive.
It's far.
Yeah. I took you off your game.
Dude, I think the Dakotas just don't get promoted.
Well, that's it, man. I mean, if we ultimately look at it, because we do have places in Kansas that we're paying $10 an acre, which is awesome. But we've also built relationships with those guys. We trust that those guys trust us. They know we take care of things. And I think as you get to places that are less demanding of hunting, so Kansas is a good one just because you got to draw a tag. Same with North Dakota, got to draw a tag. I think as you get into more whitetail country, Illinois over the counter, Kentucky over the counter, Ohio over the counter, like there's such a extreme demand, not only by residents who have lost access to places to hunt from non-residents wanting to come in and kill big bucks, that it's expensive to lease ground. And where our struggle has been, and I think, knock on wood, we've been pretty good with our run here on base camp and leasing properties blindly, is that it is pure blind. Like we're literally looking at a map and maybe talking to the agent from a base camp side, but most of the time, like literally just looking at a map and saying, shit, that seems like the right one, let's lease it. And it's blind. We don't know anything about it until we get feet on it. You know, and that's a tough thing because, I mean, we're investing money in that. We are committing to, there's no backing out. We could walk onto that property and it'd be dog shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we have it for the year. What are we going to do?
That's why you almost need like insurance. Like I kind of look at like our base camp leases as like a foot in the door to an area.
It is.
It's like we know where we want to hunt. And we find what looks like a good piece of ground, obviously that it needs to be worth the money, but then we're not going to stop there. You know, that's when we start calling landowners and stuff.
And we have lucked out. I mean, our two places in Illinois, I think both hold big bucks.
Yeah. I mean, you just got to do research. Like,
yep.
So we drew we don't have a lease in North Dakota. So like the sequence of events there was like, we found out about just North Dakota as a state being an option. We got drawn. So we're like, okay, like I guess we're going.
I guess so.
And then we reached out to, I don't know if it was Marshall first, but eventually I got in touch with Marshall and he's like, this is where you want to go. And that was like the key piece of information that we got that like tied us into our spot there. South Dakota was a little different in that I forget why exactly we started looking at it. I think we found out that there was an over-the-counter tag. And we're like, dude, we're so close to South Dakota where we hunt in North Dakota. We should just at least look at it.
So it was a plan B at first because it was like, well, if we don't get drawn in North Dakota,
that's right.
we could get over the counter in South Dakota and just hunt.
And we had a lead early on that I thought would work. I was like, dude, we might. I was like, I know a guy, and it just ended up not working out. But it was still, at that point, we had gotten excited about it enough to we're like, well, let's keep looking. And then it was just like 2 weeks ago, I think, that you had one come up on base camp, and you're like, it looks pretty good. It's in the right area. It's only 2 hours from where we hunt in North Dakota. And it looked good enough anyways that we decided to
put a
tie
deposit down.
And so we're like, cool, we're committed to the Dakota double. We got both. We just bought our tags the other day. And so what I've been doing is just studying maps. I've been looking at the area. I've been looking at some of the surrounding tracks and trying to.
And it looks a lot different than 2 hours north in North Dakota, what we're going to be, what we know where we're hunting.
But so I just put some calls into like some land. So I have Onyx. My process for this has just been clicking on tracts of ground that look good.
Yep.
I get their name, I get their address, and then I have to find their phone number online. Usually it's landlines of farmers and stuff.
We know where you live.
And so I've just called a couple people, and usually I'll leave a message. I'll let them know who we are. It's definitely a leg up that we're archery hunters and that we're only there for a few days.
And
because what harm is that?
It's across the board. I mean, we even talked about that with like Hobart in Illinois, and we're like, he's like, so like, how long you guys? We're like, yeah, we're just bow hunters. We'll be here for like a few days. And he's like, well, what about gun season? It's like, no, I'm not coming back. Like, and I think it comes down to that less threatening aspect of it. And it's like, oh, these guys are just gonna be walking around with bow and arrows on my property. Yeah, I feel a lot safer about that, especially these cattle guys, because we had this in Kansas. These cattle guys have had cows shot by hunters, whether it's
didn't Hobart too? Didn't he have a cow shot or something?
And it's like, first of all, what the hell? Like, what are you shooting at? And second of all, like, that instantly closes, and usually not, it's a domino effect, closes multiple farms in that area the moment that somebody's cow gets shot.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. That's their livelihood. And so as you start to look at this thing, it's like when we come in as a bow hunting group, those guys are pretty open to being like, okay, like, and I don't know, and no knock to gun hunters, but I think that bow hunters oftentimes get a little bit better praise for being, I don't know, more courteous hunters, maybe more respectful of it, because it obviously takes a lot more effort to become a proficient bow hunter than to walk out and just start shooting across the field with a rifle.
And you're canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have nothing against gun hunting. It is what it is. I've been just trying to like get as much. So when I get excited about a hunt like this, it's just like, okay, YouTube, everything I can get on South Dakota archery mule.
And we share the same YouTube login, so then I can easily see all the videos that you watch. I'm like, oh, Jared, watch this one. I should probably look at this one.
Every velvet mule deer that's been killed with a bow, I've watched. It's on the internet, and then I start to branch out, and there's shows that are like it's gun hunts for the same thing, and it's just like I watched a couple of them just because really I'm trying to just see footage of the terrain. Like I want to see what it looks like.
That's a good insight on that side.
And it's like I don't even understand how you make a show with that.
These guys are just walking drainages and like pushing out drainages, right? I mean, that's what I've seen. A lot of them are just like walking and scoping and pushing drainages, and like deer will run out. And
that's what's real annoying about or that's the major difference, I should say. Anyways, it's like when you watch a bow hunting show about mule deer in South Dakota specifically is what I've been watching. It's like you have to spot the deer first and then make an approach and then not scare it out of its bed to be able to shoot it within more times than not.
50 yards.
You don't have to do that with a gun. You just have an idea of where they're at, walk over. If you bump them, and then they'll eventually stop, and you just shoot them at 300 yards.
Well, and I mean, keep in mind, too, as a non-resident, it's not even possible or very unlikely to get drawn to even come in and hunt these deer because you're not getting pulled for a gun tag in most of these states for mule deer. So, I mean, again, I'm looking at it as opportunistic and like, how am I going to be able to hunt mule deer in these states? I have to be a bow hunter. Got to be a bow hunter.
I love bow hunting.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I love the Dakotas. It's beautiful country, and we're having a lot of fun with it. I don't need to shoot a Boone and Crockett muley just yet. At some point, I don't know if those are the states to do it.
It would seem that it would be tough. I mean, again, I've kind of done the same research on South Dakota. I looked at a lot of the outfitters. They kill some really good bucks, some really good mule deer, of which most of them are in the area we're going to be in. But you compare that to what we literally saw with our own eyes in our area of North Dakota, and there were some legitimate giants. I mean, some deer that were standing 20 yards from the vehicle on private land that you're like, is that deer going to go over 180? Yeah.
It's just so different. Those Western hunts, even if you're going to go apples to apples, like the whitetail hunts in the Northeast and the Midwest, like what we're used to seeing here in terms of deer, like just think about going out and if you're in Pennsylvania, you can go out and Spotlight, or Ohio and Kentucky, you can kind of just drive around in the evenings and you're looking at bean fields and alfalfa fields. And it's like you can see bucks, and you'll just get that idea in your head, and then go out to North Dakota and sit on an alfalfa field, and it's completely different. It's like there's a herd of 30 whitetails with 2 or 3 booners in it.
Yeah.
It's just different. It's different.
And I know people are probably thinking like, all right, these guys are like exaggerating. It's not, man. And I think a lot of it is the pressure.
At least where we were at. I mean,
it's pressure, number one. I mean, at some point during the season, the pressure definitely gets to that herd, and I'm sure they're few and far between. Early in the season, we're talking first week of September, you can sit on an alfalfa field and glass, or wheat field in some cases, and glass 15 muley bucks together. The one alfalfa field we sat above, I mean, I counted 23 or 24 whitetail bucks in groups of, and there was like 75 whitetails in that field. And I mean, there were at least 7 that were over 150, I would say. And it's like, why? number one is pressure, right? Again, look at the number of people that are hunting in those areas compared to as you start moving east and population density increases, so does the hunting pressure. That's it. I mean, if you put, and it's no different than Kansas, right? And no different than Iowa, because both of those states are draw states. They're harder to hunt. The least pressure in those areas, the bigger the bucks. It's just all it is.
Yeah, not just the bigger the bucks. Like, it seems like the more remote of an area that, or the less hunting pressure an area sees, the more like naturally the deer.
Yeah, they don't feel,
or whatever you're hunting are moving.
Yeah, they just don't feel that kind of. I want to even start to look at like some of these urban areas, like Columbus.
It really felt like where we hunted in North Dakota. It felt like driving into like Jurassic Park, and that it's like, oh, there's just herds of these species that you're like hunting, and it's like that doesn't happen back home.
Yeah, easier said than done to actually kill them, but I mean, at least to get eyes on them, we saw them. You know, and these damn deer knew where the barriers were. They knew like, hey, I don't think we should cross that fence. Mainly because both of us are sitting over there like almost at full draw. Like, go ahead, do it. But like they knew, and it was just on a big open hillside. They're just laying there.
Yeah,
and it's like, what are these things? Like, are they gonna run? No, they're just gonna watch us walk right by because they're like, there ain't no way in hell I'm coming on public land.
Yeah. Marshall hinted at that too. He kind of basically said if they're on private, they're not coming off.
They're not coming off. Which is kind of some of our hope here in South Dakota. Again, going in blind, we feel really confident about North Dakota.
I really hope I can sleep between now and then.
It's a few months.
I know.
You know,
it's a problem every year for me, dude. I get so excited like now, and then it's just like it's between now and
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
But then you start to look at like all of the public around these properties we're looking at in South Dakota. I would hope that those deer are feeling the same way and that they're like, yeah, I'm going to stay inside these areas. And if so, our base camp lease is going to be great. The one that we're talking to about potentially hunting is going to be great because there should, in theory, be a lot of residents hunting the public land around us.
I don't know. I'm not sure what to expect.
That's if it's an apples-to-apples comparison to South Dakota, which maybe it's not.
Why did they make that rule? Why can't we hunt public ground?
They're trying to throttle the amount of tags purchased by non-residents.
That's so dumb. That's the wrong way to do it. Why don't they just limit the number of tags?
You would think so. Because then you cut off, I think, outfitter business.
Well, that make a special deal with them.
It's a state.
Yeah, that's frustrating because it seems like it puts more pressure on private ground.
It does, for sure. Which, and I mean, a lot of these guys are big cattle guys, so I mean, that's their primary thing that they're caring about. But it's nice for these guys. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, you know, when you can go up to a landowner and give them, you know, a couple grand, like, that might pay their property taxes for the year. Like that's money that they're not banking on, you know, and especially if you're just coming in for a week to like hunt with a bow and then leave, like, yes.
I don't really remember how it came up, but the guy said, you guys aren't Biden supporters, are you? I was like, no. So, and he's like, okay, yeah, you guys are fine. I think I said something about mask or something. And
yeah. Do you want us to wear our mask when we come out and hunt your property? He's like,
I think there was something. It wasn't that, but he basically said, yeah, you're not going to need those out here. You'll be all right.
Well, is South Dakota's governor that Kristi Noem? I think that's who it is. She's like real vocal, like was like one of the governors on the big
one. Yeah. Really?
Yeah. She's one of the ones who's on the front lines of like,
pull a picture of her real quick.
Forget all this stuff. She's a big hunter too.
Okay.
Yeah, we like her.
Okay.
For president?
What's her name?
Kristi Noem.
Kristi Noem.
Yeah. No.
With no M?
Noem.
The M is silent.
Samsonite. It was right here on the briefcase the whole time. Yeah. But I mean, that's the kind of stuff. And dude, I don't know what this will be like. Obviously, the small town we go to in North Dakota, like, it's exciting for us to get there, but it's also really depressing, man. Yeah, that's Kristi.
Oh, yeah. She looks like a girl I went to high school with.
She's older than you.
I'm sure she is.
She's a big hunter, though. And a big Second Amendment supporter.
Put in type hunting after that. It said hot was the first search. That's funny. Yeah. Pheasant hunting.
Smacking some pheasants.
10. Cool.
Yeah, that's cool. But I mean, I think, when you get to some of these towns, man, there's, and part of it, I experienced this with, probably about a decade ago. I was working in central Colorado and like Gunnison and all those areas. Beautiful country, right? And there's these old like western towns like that are just sitting in between the mountains. Like Gunnison's one of them. It's a beautiful town. But like half of the businesses or more are like closed. And I'm like, what's going on here? And he's like, man, the state changed a lot of the regulations in terms of non-residents and hunters, killed our town because there's no money coming in. There's no people. He's like, there was one point in like the early 2000s and late 90s, you could come into Gunnison during November or something. He said it was literally blaze orange on the streets. Just people hunting, mule deer, elk everywhere coming in. Like it was just, everything was bumping. I was there in the same week in 2010, maybe. It was a ghost town. There's nobody there. I'm like, how can states look at that and say, we're going to make these decisions, and some of it's wildlife, but let's be honest, most of it's politics and people, and then look at the dramatic effect. In fact, our North Dakota place, I think, is similar. Like, there's just nobody there. Whereas if, I'm not saying you make it wide open, but if you encouraged or made it a little bit more known on how people can come in and hunt and spend time there, there'd be some lifeblood pumping into that town. Instead, it's shambles.
Yeah. It's a weird dilemma because, like, you want an industry for hunting so that we have like product development and, but at the same time, it's like I don't want to see any hunters. Like,
it's a weird thing. We talked.
And I'm actually for any kind of regulation that makes it harder to kill deer. I'm for, but I still want the promotion of the industry because obviously I want a new bow to shoot next year, and I want tree stands to get better.
Well, I think the hard thing is, and I know that I'll drop them. I know that Meat Eater got lit up for this recently, where I think it was Steve's brother, basically put an article out about
what is that? Meat Eater?
Yeah, Meat Eater, the podcast.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
Asshole. Who?
Never heard of her.
Never heard of her. Steve's brother basically put this article out, and it essentially was talking about recruitment of hunters and basically saying, like, he doesn't want it. Like, I don't want to see any more hunters. I don't want to do this. And, like, I think he probably said it in the wrong way. He got lit up for it. I don't think, like, obviously if I'm hunting in an area, like, nobody wants to see other hunters on top of each other.
Well, that's the thing. It's like I do want more hunters, but not near me.
Yeah. And I get that, right? But ultimately, I think where it becomes hard is that threshold of there's a lot of ground in these areas. There's room for hunters, but it has to be very well planned.
Which areas?
Where we're at in the Dakotas, where we're at in Kansas even.
I don't know.
I think there is. I just don't think it's executed.
There's a lot of different
cleanly enough
types of hunters and stuff too. That's where it gets messy though, is because you start talking, landowners, residents, non-residents, archery hunters, gun hunters, youth hunters. It's like you got all these different types of like, people that are classified as hunters, and they are. But
so is it a bag limit thing? Do you think, or is it purely a tag? Because I mean, let's look at your place in Ohio, right? Deer get massacred.
It's difference. It's difference of at least in Ohio. It's difference of objective and method. So a guy might go out with a rifle and shoot a 3-year-old, and I'm obviously not for that. So it always
it's a slippery slope.
It always comes back to we as hunters all have goals.
Yep.
And it may not even be to kill a deer. It might be just to spend time with family. Whatever it is, we all have different goals. And inevitably, because we share a resource, which is a wildlife population, you're going to have conflicts between groups of hunters.
So managing people is harder than managing the wildlife.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, yeah, I mean, it's like, it's like I want somebody to be able to go out with a rifle and enjoy it, accomplish that goal of spending time with their family. At the same time, if they go out and do that and shoot a 3-year-old that I am trying to get to 4, because that's what my goal is, and I want to kill him as a 4 or 5-year-old, we're going to be in conflict in that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough line there because I mean, like even when we were in North Dakota, the resident guys there, I think were very open to shooting whatever the hell they saw. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile we're like, I mean, we're not super picky because it's our first mule deer trip out here, but like we're not going to shoot a spike or 4-point. And that's fine, it's there, and obviously in those cases,
and they had kids,
and in those cases, I don't care. I mean, and I get obviously like first buck my kids see this year, they're gonna shoot. Mm-hmm. So it is a weird thing in terms.
But
of
at the same time, like, wouldn't you be not like you'd be happy for them? But if somebody else, another dad, brought their kid and they shot a buck that you've been hunting, like,
oh yeah, it's a conflict.
It's just a conflict. It's not like I'm against it, like, because you're still happy for those guys. It's like, man, that's awesome. Yeah, I would do the same thing with my kid, but that sucks.
Yeah, it sucks. I wanted him to live, or I was hunting him, or So that's where those, and that's one of the things I really like about South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas, is that I feel like we have some breathing room. Yeah, Kansas, there's people out there. We've got our Pennsylvania clan. They've got their Minnesota guys. Like we're kind of all in the same area on public, especially. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's still plenty of space. As you get further east, that's where I think the conflicts increase because of population and land access. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how we'll be in Illinois.
Density of hunters.
Yeah, I would assume we're probably okay. We're going to see some people at some point, but
in South Dakota,
Illinois, in and around our properties, probably. You like that?
You like that phrase?
Huh? In and around, in and around. But I think that, I mean, obviously, as we get to Ohio and Pennsylvania, like there are people all over the place. Mm-hmm. I mean. Not that I don't want to use the term my bucks because I don't like that, but
just
the bucks that we were hunting last year, of which several of them I wanted to see get another year unless my kid shot them, got shot. 5 of them. Yeah,
that's just, it all comes down to, it's a shared resource, and we all have different goals, different methods.
Well, and that's where it's like, and no knock to Steve's brother on it, but like, you have a platform like Meat Eater, you can't go out there and say, yeah, I don't want to, recruit any new hunters. Can't say that. That's a no-no.
I didn't see. I don't know. I'm not aware of the context.
You have to look at it. We'll drop a link at some point.
Because, I mean, for what we're talking about here, I can see why you would feel that way. Mm-hmm. I also see why that's maybe a bad PR move.
Well, and I think where it's a really, so different, let's segment our groups out, because we're not Meat Eater, right? We're different types of hunters than I think those guys are, to knock to them.
I like salad too.
Yeah, me too. I had a good salad last night. But those guys are very Western based. And so I think when he's saying that in terms of that,
where are they out of? Aren't they like Wisconsin?
Montana.
Are they?
I think so. Huh. I think that they say that in terms of like, well, dude, all you hunt is like BLM land. So like the fact that you're saying you don't want to recruit new hunters and you don't even own land you're hunting, it's public government land, that's a no-no. Different than, hey, we have this conflicting thing going on here in our whitetail states where our lease prices are either going up and or there's fewer leases to get because the demand's up there. That's private land. Like we can say like, hey, I don't want you to shoot that deer because I'm managing private land.
Yeah.
That's a whole different ballgame than all I hunt is BLM and Forest Service land, which is, listen, that's everybody's land, public land.
BLM is a good argument for being in favor of hunter, just a lot of hunters. Is because if we didn't have a lot of hunters or an industry like that wouldn't exist.
Yeah, that land would. Same with as we start to look in North Dakota and South Dakota. We talked about this with Marshall.
You just got to work harder.
The amount of walk-in lands, the amount of CRP lands and things like that are open to public hunting that are privately owned. It's immense. I've never seen anything like that in any other state because hunter dollars and resources and purchases are going into this pot that the states can pay private landowners to say, hey, I'll give you an extra $5,000 if you just keep your land open to public hunting. Yeah. So that's where this thing gets really kind of rocky is like, nobody can honestly say if they're out there, especially maybe pheasants and stuff is one thing, but like if you're out there deer hunting and like somebody walks right up on you, like nobody's gonna say, man, it's good to see another hunter.
Yeah. glad to have you.
Says no one, right? And if you say that, you're lying. Like I love going out and running into like a dad and their kid and like encouraging the kid. In fact, I'll be like, hey man, like there's deer over there or turkeys over there, like have at them. Because I want to see the kids succeed so this generation keeps going. Just like I hope somebody would return that favor if I was in that position. Sure. But in terms of like, do I want to be sitting on the top of like that mound we were in North Dakota scouting mule deer and be like, there's a guy, there's a guy, there's a guy, there's a guy. No, I don't want
There's
that.
a reason we're driving 24 hours across the country is to get away from people and into wildlife.
Yeah. So it is some kind of context there that has to be put into place, and that you can't, and again, in North Dakota, we're hunting public land. So if we saw that, it's public. What are we going to do? But when you're talking about tens of thousands of acres of BLM land and Forest Service land, like, you know, if we see a guy, we did this in North Dakota. We would come up, hey, there's a guy parked there. Guess what? We don't hunt there. We let him have his space. We go to the next spot. Maybe it's not as good as that spot, but I'm not going to walk up on that guy. That's just common courtesy.
Yeah.
And I think that that's another thing that's maybe a little bit more respectful on a bow hunting side, that I don't, like, I've had people walk up and sit 100 yards from me in rifle season, and it's like, seriously? Like, I'm right here. You see me.
Some people just aren't like privy to the common courtesy that like we assume is common knowledge, I think.
Yeah.
It seems to be gun hunters more frequent, or crossbow hunters. They're just like, and they just don't know. Like, I don't think they think they're being like rude or intruding on your space. They're just like, oh, hey, another hunter. Like,
I don't know, man. Some of those guys are.
Some of them do.
And I've had it with bow season too. I've been, especially down south, I've been in a spot, climbed up in the stand, waved at the guy, and that son of a bitch will just pump up 100 yards from me and just like, I'm not there. And it's like,
yeah,
what? No, like, I'm here. I was here first.
Yeah.
They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how fights happen.
Yeah, I mean, dude, there's still good hunting to be.
That's how turds end up at the base of trees.
You just gotta, I think, do research and find good spots, and those good spots go away too. Like North Dakota is as awesome of a spot as we found. Like, who knows? You know, maybe people figure out that spot, and
and it's overwhelming. You know, a couple other guys were hunting the year before, didn't get drawn last year when we did, and we all got drawn this year. What do you think? And we talked about this from a fishing perspective the other day with one of our clients at Stone Road. Do you think onyx is a spot burner?
No. I think it just...
People think that, right? And if you don't know what we're talking about, spot burning, we're saying by having access to something like onyx maps and property landowners, you know, borders, etc., it is basically shortcutting and essentially maybe putting pressure on hunting areas that normally would have been phenomenal because nobody knew about them. And now with this increase in technology, because we hear this a lot, we're dealing with this on a fishing side, which, first of all, I agree. I think it's bullshit. I don't think that it does. Because what good does it do that I can just see? I could do that anyways from Google Maps.
Yeah,
minus landowner lines.
Just, I'm sure it feels that way to, like, there's probably some people that have, you know, been the only ones that knew about a spot or something. And then when it gets the light shine on it with something like an onyx, it's like, yeah, maybe that goes away. But I mean, there's always spots, and it's not like there's more hunters because of onyx, I don't think.
No.
They're just, you know, they're just more aware of what.
I mean, it's still like, if you're like, hey, that's the spot, it's still a mile from the road. Like, you still have to put the effort to get there. And I mean, I think that you and I have maybe changed our hunting style based on onyx just because of the ability to look at funnels and pinch points.
I don't know anything different. Yeah, I mean, I'm only 28. I've always had access to Google Maps and stuff. Like, I never
You're just a baby.
Was hunting off of like I don't know. What did you do before that? Yeah, I don't know.
I just walked until I saw a sign. It said, stop. You can't hunt here.
So I don't know. I mean, and I think
most of the time,
I think hunters are getting better. You know, people that use those resources, like we can use the land more, or we can hunt the land more effectively because it's like I can see from these maps where the access points are at, where the you know, probable game trails and stuff are at, and so people probably are getting better at hunting because they have information from things like onX.
I mean, I know we go into, when we're flying blind on a lot of stuff, first thing we do is usually pull up onX. I think I'm not looking at it necessarily from what's on the property that we're about to lease or we're going to hunt, as much as what's around it. I think anymore what we're figuring out here, again, not to beat the dead horse, but if big buck doesn't live there, we ain't going to kill him. It's just how it is that you start to look around and say, well, here's this is all public. This is all easy access. Like there's people coming in, or, this little piece is completely surrounded by private that probably is at least being managed, thus a better chance of bucks being in this section we're looking to hunt.
Yeah.
And so I think that's probably where it's helped out a lot. And I mean, we do drop pins and say, once we get feet on the ground, like, hey, we want to check this spot out, which, pat on our back. I think most of the time when we end up there, we're like, yeah, this is a good one.
Usually.
But I mean, so from that angle, yeah, it definitely helps, but you still have to know what you're looking for. It's not going to be like, oh, there's Jared and Jeremy's spot that they kill all these bucks in Kansas on. That doesn't exist.
Yeah, we don't even kill bucks at the spots that we
I know.
half the time.
No shit. So like, I think that people, because I see that a lot, and onX isn't an official partner of ours or anything. We just use it. It's a great product. But I see that a lot on their posts is like, just like we see on our trout routes is the app we're talking about with Stone Road. They're like, yeah, I hate this, man. It's just spot burning. I'm like, you're fishing 20 miles of river. What the hell do you mean it's spot burning?
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to sit there and say, yes, fish this spot. In fact, there are products out there that I do think spot burn. On the fishing side, there's a product called Fish Brain that basically people can register their catches on a lake or river, and it'll GPS them on that. And if you're a pro member or whatever it is, you can go on and be like, oh, Jared caught a muskie right here. That is spot burning to me, because then I'm like, well, yeah, obviously there's one in this area.
Yeah, I hate that.
So
it's just like combining social media with hunting, which are like should be the opposite.
So I think that when you start to think about that stuff, I mean, there is technology advances that aren't good, but man, even these people on the forum, like I read a lot of forums, I'm sure you did, when we were talking about like South Dakota and North Dakota. Like these guys are brutal on this stuff.
Where are you reading forums at?
Just online, like just when I would search like South Dakota mule deer hunting, like first thing that comes up is like there's like 2 or 3 forums that are dedicated to that stuff in South Dakota for mule deer hunting. They're brutal. Like guy will be like, yeah, I'm thinking about hunting Hardin County. These guys are like, F off.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. And I'm like, okay. Like the one guy was like, yeah, like I'm from New York. I'm thinking about driving out and bow hunting. And the guys were like, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I don't read a whole lot of forums. I mean, I guess I should maybe dip my toe in there, but like the rebel in me just like, I don't think people know what they're talking about half the time. Also, there's a lot of difference from property to property.
Huge.
I think when we go on our lease and then we go on, if we get permission on this other place, I think they'll be totally different.
Totally
pieces
different.
Of ground.
Could both be good, but totally different.
Yeah, could both be good.
I think that's the big thing is like when people, and I mean, I'm not against helping anyone. Like if somebody wrote us and said, hey, where are you guys hunting in North Dakota? Like there's a chance I tell them in and around.
Yeah.
Right.
Western.
Yeah. Western.
North Dakota.
Yeah. In that state.
Badlands.
River. But I think that when you get to these guys that are literally just saying, hey, I'm thinking about hunting in whatever, X national forest. Like, I'm not looking for a spot, but like, are you guys seeing mule deer? And these guys won't help them. They won't even say it. They're like, man, good luck. It's like, dude, if you hunt it out there, just be like, yeah, there's some good deer. You know, you still got to work for them. Just like we would in Kansas. Like, it's like, yeah, there's big bucks in Kansas. You still got to work for them. You know, and if the weather sucks, you're not going to kill anything.
Yeah.
But it's just, I'm not saying, I'm definitely against the hunters. I don't want to say shaming other hunters. Like, I hate that. Like the fact that like people will post things and they'll be like, oh, I don't know why you shot that. Or I don't like, dude, if you don't have anything to say, just don't say it. Instead, you're going to criticize them. But I think that when you get to this, like people looking for advice or helping, you know, it's one of the reasons we have this podcast, right? Is just to be able to provide information, and not saying it's all right, but it's information in our opinions and our experience. But it's just a weird thing that like hunters are just like, well, I can't even tell him like I'm hunting in this county because then he's going to be there and he'll probably kill my buck. It's like, what? No, dude.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen.
Probably going to happen anyways.
Yeah, it's probably going to get hit by a car.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like I do a lot of that like online anyways. Like if somebody
on the line,
if somebody came to me and if somebody I knew and was like, hey, like,
yeah,
I'm interested in mule deer hunting or,
I mean, that's how we got
dude,
started.
Honestly,
we wouldn't have been successful had we not had probably Ben and Marshall both help us.
Yeah, quite the opposite, actually. Usually I'm like, I want to share. Like, I want to share with people that I want to see be successful.
Sure.
And the people that I want to see be successful are the people that I know, like, respect the animal and are excited about hunting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's like why I invited Corey to Kansas. It's like, man, I saw how excited he got when he killed that buck on my farm in Ohio, and I was like, man, I know what the next level for this is, and I know what it meant to me when that happened. So it's like I get excited about now sharing that with, in this case, Corey, but it's not just him. Like there's other people I'd like to see. I mean, dude, freaking Alex. Like I know how much Alex wants to kill an antelope. He's told us in passing, and he's like, dude, that's like my number one.
We're set up for
target. And I was like, so my first response is like, yeah, we're the hunters technically to go out, but Alex, if we get an opportunity to put him on an antelope, it's like, let's do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah, and I think that's but
I wouldn't do that for just anybody,
right? No, nor would I. Like, I think that's where I try to even like people do it on. It seems very much more common on the fishing side. Like, I'll get people that'll see our pictures from fishing.
They are different. I'll say, like, fish aren't deer,
or they aren't, surprisingly.
Yeah. And believe it or not, deer aren't fish. Vice versa. It's funny, though, because some guys treat deer like fish. My dad is one of them. Like, he's like, well, I'll just, I'll catch another one.
I mean, in some aspects, they are the same. Like, if you put corn out, you'll probably catch a fish or a deer.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, in that respect. But I think there's a limited number. I mean, it's a herd, and there's specific animals. We're looking for mature deer. Like, with fish, you're not like, that's probably a 3-year-old fish. Like, nice gills. Like, I'll keep this one. It's just a fish. There's like
it's a fish.
It's a fish.
People will probably argue against us on that, but that's
wrong. But you got to treat them differently.
Yeah, I mean, you still can put pressure on fish to where you spook them out. Look at trout, right? You put pressure on a hole, the trout are gone or they're not biting.
Yeah, no doubt.
But it is.
There's still a limited resource too, but just not nearly as limited.
I think where a lot of people get thrown off is that there are people that really yearn for camaraderie of hunting. And I would say that we're kind of in that group, but not really. Like, we have our core group of people that we like to, like, obviously if people are engaging with our podcast, like, I'd love to help them out and be like, hey, yeah, do this, do that, go here, here's what we did. And I like that camaraderie aspect of it. Ours is more core group. We have a group of us that we are kind of passionate about all succeeding. But then you have other people that just yearn for inclusion.
Yeah.
And like the moment the opportunity presents itself to be like, oh yeah, I saw a bunch of bucks here, like you should go hunt them, it just floods 50 people to an area that suffocates, whether it's a lease or public ground or whatever. And that's a tough thing to deal with because they're excited about hunting. They're excited about being with other hunters, but the moment they tell 20 people, the success is gone. That spot is destroyed, and now it's kind of like, well, he told me. Did he tell you too? Oh, that's weird. Like, and then it almost makes them seem like the bad guy, and they're not, because they're just trying to help and they're excited about it.
Yeah.
And I see that a lot with turkey hunting. Like, oh yeah, like I heard a bunch of birds over here. Oh, cool. If you told one person that and be like, yeah, I killed my bird, like knock yourself out. I do that up on the mountain, right? Hey, we killed our bird. Boys and I killed our bird. I'm done. I'll tell them anytime I'm seeing birds on my stealth cams and stuff. Different than that would be if I told a group text message of 15 guys where I'm seeing these birds, because then there's going to be conflict because I told 15 guys where to go.
Well, or Yeah, like even like our spot in Kansas, like it's public land, but it's like I'm hunting a buck down there, and it's like if you texted 2 or 3 other people that we have on the podcast, I'm like, dude, what the hell?
Yeah, I'd be dead. The spot would be dead. And I mean, we're seeing that. Like, I mean, and obviously no knock to them, it's public land and it's good, but like I've explored some other spots, public land around there, and the Minnesota guys are all over the place. And good for them. Like, I mean, they're getting out, they're in the right spots, because if I'm heading there and they're already hunting there, good for them.
Yeah, good luck getting out with slash tires.
Yeah, sorry to hear about your tire issue.
It's a real shame.
sorry to hear about your tree stand disappearing.
Wow, that's a bummer.
That's a bummer.
Can't hang stands on public land.
Yeah, I probably know who it is. You might want to contact me.
We were just enforcing the law. So.
But I mean, it's just part of hunting, right? And there's plenty of, like, you miss out on a spot, you go to another one. But I think what's weird about it is that there's the group that like loves success and wants to see it for the right people. And then there's the group that loves success, but just wants included. And I don't mean that in a shaming way.
Yeah.
But
it's just what I was talking about earlier is what is the point? What's their goal in hunting?
Yeah.
And that can change. It can go back and forth, and even for the same person in the same season, it can change, I think. Like different hunts that we go on, like the reason that I hunt my farm in Ohio for like a specific buck a lot of times is different in some ways from like, you know, how I look at our South Dakota hunt. Like our South Dakota hunt our Dakota hunt is more about an adventure and about like us planning it and executing it and like having fun while we're doing it.
Would we love to kill big buck? Absolutely. But if we just go out and kill good bucks,
that's why we're going. Yeah.
With our bow and have a blast doing it, like that's a win.
Yeah. And it evolves. And that's what's so cool about having, you know, different species to hunt and different places to hunt is like you can have a multitude, like you can have a very full season between hunting somewhere for one reason and hunting somewhere else for another reason and with different people.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where we start to, you know, people are hearing us talk like, oh, Dakotas and Illinois and Kansas. And they're like, Jesus, all these guys do are hunt. That's not true. Like we have a very planned.
That's all we think about.
Yes. Yes.
That's my lack of sleep last night.
We have a very planned 7-ish days of Dakota. We have a very planned 7-ish days of Kansas. And then in between, it's just opportunistic, right? So, like, there are 2 planned trips in there, a week each, approximately. And then everything else is just kind of when we can do it and on a whim and stuff. And, again, we probably won't get to hunt as efficiently as we would like to across the board. But that's real life, right? It gives us options, and maybe not everybody can afford all the options. We're doing it more as part of this hunter business, not necessarily as Jared and Jeremy. But like, I think ultimately when you start to look at how people are laying it out, like you just have to have a strategy. You know, our strategy is we can hunt Kentucky early. At least as of right now, it doesn't seem like it's been or is going to be successful. So we're going to the Dakotas. Opening weekend, September 1st, we'll be in South Dakota. By the 3rd, 4th, 5th, somewhere in there, we'll be in North Dakota, and then we'll come home several days later. Then there's this big gap that essentially the only place we can hunt is Kentucky, right?
In September.
In September.
Not December, yeah.
Yep. And then essentially October 1 hits, and it's wide open. So, you know, I think people look at that, and they're like, well, like, you know, how are you going to hunt all this? Like, we have a strategy, and we probably won't get to hunt everything we want to, but we have bookends planned, which is kick it off in Dakota, not necessarily close it, but damn close to close it out in Kansas.
Yeah. In
between, you know, we lose several weeks that we can only hunt Kentucky, and then October and the first 2 weeks of November is like whatever we can do. You know, and it may be a bunch, it may be hardly anything. We don't know.
It's just about flexibility and making time for it.
Yep.
A lot of it's tied to weather events and dates and stuff. And
well, and I think that's the big thing. You know, Jeff Sturgis was very adamant about it and saying, listen, you know, you can go out and hunt as much as you want. But
I got a bone to pick with Jeff, by the way.
Yeah. Here are the dates that essentially, or these are the times you need to hunt. Beyond that, like, you could kill a buck, but you're probably not at the best likelihood to kill a buck. And I think that's smart. I mean, that's how we have to approach it because, I mean, we're not out there hunting. So, like, the moment October 1 kicks off, I think we probably are looking at Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, maybe Kentucky. We're looking at 4 states, and we're eyeballing our real-time data from our cell cams, and we're eyeballing the weather in those states. And at some point, those align to say, hey, we got to hunt that, or I'm going to hunt that.
This may be the earliest in the podcast I've done this.
You got pee already?
Pee, yeah.
Oh, my God.
I've been bringing this Fiji water for you.
I know.
Flies right through me.
We'll pause.
All right.
First station identification. Yeah, so I think that, one of the things to look at is kind of this whole, opportunistic look in terms of when we can hunt and then where we can hunt. And again, I mean, this comes back to the camaraderie side, and you and I talked about this even for South Dakota. Like, we'll have Colton and Alex there with us, of which that will let us divide and conquer.
Which I'm a little afraid of, man. I was thinking about that last night. I was
to a point, like that's kind of a downgrade, I think. Like, because there's an aspect of us strategery, hunting and planning and making a plan of attack that if we're kind of out in our 2 groups, we can cover more ground and maybe get more content. But like, then it's also a different story line. I think the other thing too is unless we have these 2 different properties, basically, highly doubt we're going to have deer in both areas that we're making attacks on. If we're only on one private land piece of ground, like the deer are probably going to be, the bucks are going to probably be together, or most of them at least, but we don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to treat that yet. Like it's a non-issue in Kansas. Cause like, obviously we're sitting in different tree stands and spot.
Versus spot and stock.
Yeah, like with our North Dakota hunt last year, is like half the fun was just us doing it together. And granted, we didn't film it; we don't have any footage, but
no proof.
But yeah, I'd hate to like lose that aspect of it.
How we should know pretty soon here if we got drawn for Kansas, right?
Sometime in June, I think.
Is it? I thought it was in May.
I don't actually know.
I could probably tell.
They sent us an email right when
I'll check that out.
Comes out. Don't they?
What do you think in terms of how are you feeling about Kansas? Because I know we're making some moves out there, right?
What moves are we making?
Well, I mean, your traditional spot.
Oh yeah, I'm real excited to change it up.
You are excited to change it up?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so. I am not excited about just what the wind does up there, but I kind of think that it doesn't matter.
I kind of think it doesn't matter either.
The only other spot that I would be like I'm torn on is like if I could, where after I shot Pretty Boy, he ran down to. Mm-hmm. There's kind of that little like grassy knoll down there. It's right where the that oak tree was at, where we found those other stand sticks.
Oh yeah.
That's where he ran down into.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I also look back and realized that we had Spider-Man right in front of the camera. Like,
when was that? Because you sent me that picture and I was like, yeah, that's definitely him.
I think that was like a few days before we got there.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Dang it. And here we thought that deer didn't show up until December.
Yep. So I look back and sure enough, he was there. There's obviously a good buck in there right now. We've got the camera down there, so. Yeah, I do think that's the move. The access is much better, dude. If we can jump on a rogue and just rip down across that pasture and then just pop in there, my word, does that make things easier for me? Especially with this year, I'm having to kind of guide Corey at least early on, get him into his stand and stuff. So I need that time.
I think that's a big one for us to really kind of look at is again, we're adding another person, another hunter into the mix.
How do you feel about, we got all kind of time to plan for it, but I've been kind of thinking about sticking Corey down in Robert's Bottom.
Based on what we're seeing down there, I think there's going to be a lot of bucks.
It seems like, per where all of us like to end up, that's pretty open. It seems like the easy, and it's easy access is really the reason. I don't want him to have to do anything too crazy his first time out there.
May 21st last year.
So in 2 weeks, week or so, we'll get drawn. I feel pretty good about it.
That'd be a big relief. Yeah, I think that's a good spot. I mean, the one cool thing that we have this year, again, proper planning that we didn't have last year, is we've got all these stealth cams and solar panels out.
Yeah.
And
what a world of difference. We never knew.
Yeah, we're seeing big bucks already.
We never knew.
That's crazy. It's May.
Dude, you can make a hunting season last as long as you want it to. It just, if you got cameras out, if you're actively, working on stuff. And
I mean, ultimately, if we're looking at Kansas, between Roberts Bottom, public land, and I guess our lease, we've got several, what I would assume are probably likely big bucks on camera hitting those mineral licks.
Yeah.
If we go to Illinois, we for sure have some big bucks in there. And it's funny, man.
Just on scrapes.
Yeah. So number one is no minerals in Illinois. We found these, what seemed like when we were there, community scrapes, confirmed. And in the hill country, we've definitely got a ton of bucks using that funnel, right? On the other one, we had one buck, but I think he was the right buck. He showed up, one time early? Remember that real big buck that hit that scrape at Hobart's in that back? And we haven't seen him since, which is fine. He'll be back in there. But we have had a lot of activity on that scrape since then, mostly does and stuff like that. So it's so cool to watch that kind of stuff happen, and know, like, yes, we have a beat on that. We got to get one going in Ohio here soon on Bob's place. We have them in Kentucky, seeing quite a few bucks in Kentucky already on that lease. So, I mean, we've got it covered, man, pretty well. The only one that we're not sure of, and there's a good chance this weekend it's going to get caught up, is Mike's going to go look at that Indiana lease.
Is he?
Yep. He hasn't got over there yet, but he said he's going to try to get over there and take a look at that and see what's going on with that camera. Because I know there's a big buck on there. The three of us found that track that was like giant.
Yeah.
So, we're in the right spots. And again, most of these were blindly leased through base camp.
Yeah.
And isn't it like last night, 8 o'clock on the dot, I'm like hovering my phone and I'm like 8:01, boom, there's the email.
I probably
no. Okay, nothing tonight.
I probably would have slept a lot better had you responded to me last night.
Sorry, I passed out.
I know. It was like 8:30.
No, it was like 9:30.
It's like 9:30.
Yeah, I was asleep.
I was just like, I gotta tell Jeremy. I gotta feel it. And then my mind just started reeling on.
Yeah, I waited at like 8 o'clock. I always wait because that's when the base camp wall hanger thing comes through. And I'm like, no, nothing. The other day, there was like 15 of them. I was like overloaded. I'm like, where's this county? Where's this county? Where's this county?
Yeah.
I'm just trying. I think at this point, I'm really focused on maybe another one in Kansas if it came up, opportunistic, and maybe another one in Illinois. Other than that, I think we're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're more than good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Illinois ones is...
one would say great.
Yeah, no, we're in great shape. Yeah, the Illinois one is, I don't know. Like, we just have never been there. I don't know. We're just excited. Like, we're so excited about the Dakotas because we had such a good experience last year.
Well, it's the first thing we have to look forward to. I mean, it is.
And it's the first one, yeah.
August 30th or 31st, we gone.
Dude,
we're on the road.
I've got a bug for mule deer, man. Like,
yeah.
I'm really enjoying it.
What do you think that is? Is it just the different spot and stock bow stuff? Is it just visible big bucks? Because, I mean, it's definitely, we lay eyes on more big muleys than whitetails.
Just felt like we're in the game, like, constantly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's just, there's more excitement. With whitetail, it's a longer season, and there's more of a management aspect, and, it's got its place. It's still my number one favorite thing to hunt, I think. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, mule deer's just different.
You're in the game. I mean, given we're not hunting a particular standard property.
I really enjoy the athletic aspect of it, or like the
athletes.
Like, it gives you a real advantage to be in good shape when you're hunting mule deer.
Oh, for sure.
Whereas whitetail, I mean, it does.
You do. You don't want to hump all that gear in and be like out of shape at the tree stand and climbing up in and sweaty mess.
But it's like, because I work out for.
Oh, you do?
I work out for these hunts. Really, it's like, man, I've got an objective here. I want to be in my best shape to hunt these mule deer, and it makes a difference.
Yeah,
and so does. I feel like I've got to. And I'll be honest, like, not being cocky is like, I see some of these guys kill mule deer with their bows and stuff on just YouTube and stuff. I'm like, I mean, dude, this guy's he's pretty overweight. Like, he's not in good shape.
You even lift, bro?
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, I could have definitely killed that mule, like 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I just felt like some of our stocks last year, they just went so well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we were tired at the end of some of them.
We were tired, but like we got in on them. Like it wasn't that hard to stock a mule. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because it is a different style, and I think our heads are so geared to like, entering and exiting,
in and around
locations for whitetail. Like, I mean, we're literally like, Colton breaks a twig behind us, and we're gonna slap him back in place. Whereas, like when we're mule deer hunting, you're still very acute and aware of your surroundings, but I mean, you're just going. And you're stopping and glassing. You're going, you're stopping and glassing, which is a lot different than what we see from the like far west guys, which are like sitting at a point for hours at a time just glassing.
The high country guys.
Yeah, we didn't do that. We were moving and shaking and glassing, moving, glassing, moving, glassing. And I think that was the strategy that paid off because we covered a lot of ground and we saw a lot of bucks.
Yep.
You're
basically still hunting the whole time.
You put that stock on that real big one, and we weren't even hunting that deer.
That was a big buck, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, that was.
I'm not misremembering it. That was probably a 150.
150s.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Full velvet too.
Yeah.
So weird. And then there was that other younger buck with him that we didn't even know was there.
Real little.
Yeah. 1 or 2 year old. But yeah, it was just weird how, again, and you're just moving and you look back and it's like a buck right there.
I think I would have killed that buck in hindsight. Just learning like how deep in these crevices and stuff they'll hide.
I mean, that
I
buck
think I
was
would have been
in
a little
a
more cautious.
gopher hole.
He was all the way at the bottom of the ditch. Yeah.
And it was so funny because like I'm watching you and I watch where this buck went. I'm up on this point. The little buck had already come out, ran right in front of me. And I'm watching and I'm like, what the hell? Like, where'd he go? Like freaking ghost? Like, and again, it's so deceiving because it literally, there's little coulees and drops and ditches and stuff. Like these deer can navigate and you'll never see them.
Well, that's why I took so long on the next stock is because I'm like, he's here. Like,
well, because I watched you, I'm like, dude, you're on him, like.
And I would have drilled him right.
I mean, he was
had he been
right there.
Yep. That was fun.
Then when he finally busted and I saw you draw, I'm like, holy shit, like you were like on top of him. And it's crazy because a whitetail.
Did I come to full draw?
You did once he.
That's right, because I thought he might stop.
You thought he was going to stop.
That's one thing I find about these mule deer, they don't stop.
Until he got to the next shade patch and then he stopped. But I mean, if I'm watching you from that section and it's like, first of all, if a whitetail did that deer's gone. That's next county. Right? This deer ran 300 yards, found a shaded ledge, plopped his ass back down. That was a big, long out and around for you to get back to him. Plus, I don't think he had shoes on when you were stalking. I think you took your shoes off.
I usually take them off, off final approach.
And so, I mean, even though it seemed like short distances to cover, I mean, it took you a while to get there, of which then at that point, the sun had moved, that shade had gotten eaten up, and that son of a bitch slipped through. I don't even know how he did that.
I don't know either.
I literally am watching this thing, and I have no idea how he,
got out of there.
Or where he went.
Had to gone up and over. The only way he could have gone.
Stuff will drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Really crazy, man. Yeah, and it's just,
fun,
dude,
man. I've got an internal conflict right now. It's like, I'm like, do I like mule deer hunting better than whitetail hunting? I don't know.
That's a big one.
I don't know.
There's something about it. First of all, it is his beautiful country.
It's gorgeous.
To get up in some of these big bluffs and just be like looking around and you're like, there's nothing around me.
Well, that's part of it. Is like I love hunting whitetails, but I love being in remote locations. And mule deer hunting gets you that.
Yep. And it's cool and you're looking, and then again, like you said, you're in the game at any moment. Like we were in the deer. I mean, hell, we were walking down that big drainage, finding sheds. Like there's a shed. There's a shed.
Yeah.
And it's like, what? Nobody's been here?
It's more of a physical challenge. And it's more remote. There's more risk involved. Like if you get hurt, it's further to walk. And I just like that. The harder it is, the more you have to prepare and the more
I think that's why we go to bow hunting naturally, is that it's harder.
Yeah, it's a challenge. It's a new challenge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There are definitely things. There's more action in mule deer hunting than there is whitetail hunting. Like there's plenty of days that we'll sit for whitetail. We didn't see shit.
Yeah.
And there is no action. It's just repetitive, nothing. When it happens, it's exciting. But with mule deer, like, you're making the action happen, whereas whitetail, you're waiting for the action to come to you. And I think that's the big difference between the two. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's nothing better than like sunrise in November, hearing leaves crunching and bucks grunting, and like I'm on edge. But you're waiting for that action to come to you. Whereas with mule deer hunting, you're trying to make the action happen.
I think because of that, the stakes are higher with whitetail hunting. Like, there's more there are more highs and lows because it's.
Oh, if you blow it on a whitetail, you blew it on a whitetail
shot. Yeah, and I've had that. I've had some.
Whereas the deer we just talked about, mule deer, you made multiple stalks within an hour and 20 minutes.
Keep an eye on them. We'll get another one. Keep going. Just keep going.
I wonder how that would progress. As like, I know a lot of guys that these videos you were watching too. These guys were hunting in November towards the rut. I don't know. I feel like that would be a lot more difficult because we're watching bachelor groups of 5, 6, 7 bucks together, and that's what we're making our approach on, or at least getting in the area where I assume towards the rut, you're making an approach on a buck.
There's not a lot of them, dude. There's less than a dozen like velvet South Dakota archery hunts on YouTube, I think.
Mm-hmm. Soon to be more.
There's just not a lot of them. I mean, it's just a small part of the state. Like, South Dakota's not promoted as a muley state. You look at any...
It's not. I mean, we looked at those harvest...
Neither of the Dakotas are.
We looked at those harvest statistics. That's what we were really trying to cover ourselves on. And, where we're at in Hardin County is mule deer. That, like, if you look at how many whitetail bucks and mule deer bucks, it's like 4 or 5 mule deer bucks to every whitetail buck harvested in that area. The moment you go across 85, I think it is, or south of Hardin County, it's 6 to 10 to 1 whitetail bucks over mule deer bucks. So it's literally an isolated, different than South Dakota, still isolated, but almost the entire western part of South Dakota towards the Montana border is mule deer country. And I haven't looked at the statistics of harvest there, but we know there's mule deer bucks there. We've seen them. They're all over.
Yeah, I love the opportunity to hunt either or. I mean, dude, if we're going for muleys, and that's the point. But, I mean, if I killed a big whitetail buck off one of those alfalfa fields, I got to be pretty amped.
Well, I mean, if you think about in North Dakota, I'm still not putting it out in North Dakota if the situation was correct. But, like,
oh yeah,
there are some giants in that alfalfa field. And then that one we saw run across the road was a true monster. I mean, that's 180+ inch whitetail. Like, that's a freaking,
yeah.
But how the hell do you stalk those things? Because that thing came across the road and was 5 ditches over by the time we would even open the door.
Just different kind of hunting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so, I mean, I think that's the cool thing about both of these states and these any deer tags is that you could kill a whitetail if you wanted to.
Yeah, I might eat my words on this, but I think that I think muleys are easier to
hunt. Yes.
I just don't think they're as jumpy.
Yes. Well, I think the big thing is
because you can stalk them. It's just very difficult to spot and stalk a whitetail, which means you have to pattern them, which takes more time and it's less consistent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say, well, they'll argue against the fact that it's harder to get to good mule deer in the Dakotas. I would argue that that's not true. In Colorado, probably.
Yeah, but if you train, it's not an issue. Like, if you're in good shape, it doesn't matter. You just get
like Weston's hunt's a good example. Obviously he was hunting elk. It sounded like he came across some mule deer, but he was also 7+ miles in there setting up base camp. So, like, our case in North Dakota, I mean, we came back to our trailer every night.
Yeah.
And we were still in deer. So I would say, at least based on
there's bigger deer in Colorado though.
Yeah. My limited experience, and that's just because more room to go, less pressure probably.
Yeah.
I'd say limited experience, obviously, in hunting mule deer.
Anything I say about mule deer hunting is like I have hunted 3 days of my whole life mule deer hunting.
Yeah. So I mean, it
killed one in 3 days.
Yeah, that's what matters. I mean, yeah, it is weird to. It is something exciting, though, because I love whitetail hunting. It's a different beast, though, because we're investing a lot of time in the pre-scouting and the patterning and the understanding of what those deer are and doing.
Yeah.
Whereas in mule deer, it's just like, let's go find the action.
It takes less preparation in terms of only in terms of patterning.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it's more like you just go and find it and then stalk it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as much like running trail camera as like setting up situations. That's what whitetail hunting is.
Yes.
It's fun, man. It's awesome to have a diversity of it. I really do like the camaraderie aspect of mule deer hunting because it's like the pressure is kind of off or how do I want to say that? Like you're doing it together and
Sure.
like it's not like you have to be quiet the whole time. It's like, hey,
we're sitting up
we're
there
safe
talking.
here. Let's talk.
Looking,
let's make a plan. Then now let's go do this.
We even think of like when we were making that approach on where we thought these deer were. We went up on that little knob and like climbed up on there and like looked over and that doe was like right there. And we're like, holy shit!
How cool was that?
And from our experience, most of the time she was, but most of the time they're not alone. Like there are several other deer in and around that area, in and around. See how that comes together? It's very appropriate in this setting. This is a safe zone for that. But like, that's what you have to kind of come and be used to. So even like when we saw your buck, it was like, well, shit, there are other bucks around here. Like we're watching him, but they're here. I would assume they probably were. We just never saw them.
I've been thinking a little bit about that, getting into that draw. I still think we need to be in there. I think that camping is maybe not the greatest.
Probably not. I assume we're going to get red flagged.
I just think we're going to start early and just hike it in the dark.
Yep.
Just get in there, first light. What would it take? Maybe an hour?
Yeah.
To hike all the way?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's just a straight hike, you just got to be careful where you're walking. Also, I don't know about the snakes at night thing.
Snakes on a plane.
Yeah, snakes because they hunt in the dark.
Yeah.
We didn't see any snakes.
Well, I mean, if it's dropping into the 30s, they're not out at night. They're tucked in there.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
And I imagine in that sense, we probably will break up.
The hard part will be, I mean, hiking in there at night it sounds like, yeah, that's tough. That's still some tough terrain to get through.
Absolutely.
And get disoriented as hell.
Yeah. Maybe.
The other thing is I don't necessarily want to just push through there and potentially blow out other deer we could hunt on the way in. Or are you just forfeiting those deer?
I think they're still filtering in there. Yeah. You just got to get ice on that alfalfa field. I mean, that's where they're coming from.
That'll be the plan.
I do think we'll probably break up. So whoever decides to go in there, the other group of us will probably drive.
Just drive around and
like
find
we
some.
Normally do.
Yep. Yeah.
And we'll have comms. We'll get comms up for sure.
Just make sure that we can pick you up.
We're gonna figure that out in South Dakota if you can.
I don't think you can.
Comms
I think I saw that. No comms. No comms in South Dakota. Yeah.
Hand signals.
Is he pulling on his belt or taking a pee? Yeah. I can't tell what he's doing. I think he's saying something about the sun rises in the east.
Okay, so I said I got a bone to pick with Sturgis.
Yeah, go for it.
Not a bone to pick really at all, but like, if this is true, I don't know how he doesn't know this, and we need to follow up and like let him know. So we have been trying to figure out what the deal is with lime for our food plots.
Yes.
For a long time now. I've been all over the place. I have actually never used pelletized lime. Just because I was like, it doesn't seem feasible to put that amount of like material down on the ground. But so I had a truck come out and put ag lime down in one case.
Yeah.
And that worked okay. Like it was hard to find the guy. It was just kind of like a little guy.
Yeah, I mean they're fading. There's just there's not many people that do that anymore.
Very few. This guy was running like a little side operations. He came out that did work on some food plots, but now it's like I want to do 2 big bean plots this year that first of all, I lost the guy's number. He might be dead for all I know. From everything I've heard, and like Jeff even told us, he's like, yeah, it's not any different. It's pelletized lime is the same as ag lime. It's just in pelletized form. And you would need to put down the same amount. So if the soil test calls for 2 tons of lime per acre, in essence, you would need 2 tons of pelletized lime.
The one thing we have to still do research on is I do think there is dolomitic pelletized lime, and I think there is fast-acting pelletized lime.
See what the difference is.
And I believe it is the same stuff, finer ground, compacted in terms of dolomitic pelletized lime, but it is not as potent as
why wouldn't
fast
it be?
acting. I think it's different active
I don't
ingredients.
think so, dude. What would be the difference? No. It's lime.
No,
Same thing.
There's different types.
What's different about it?
I think it's the actual chemical breakup and stuff.
Which has high magnesium content.
Yeah.
See, it's referring to them as the same thing. It's just saying pelletized lime is dolomitic lime. If your soil is high in magnesium, use fast acting.
No,
or
calcitic. So the one is high calcium.
Oh, okay. One's calcitic and one's dolomitic.
Yes, which I believe most ag limes.
Dolomitic is more expensive, but covers more area.
There you go. That's what I'm going at. That's why when we talk about deer grow and plot start, it's calcium. More relatable to fast acting lime versus ag lime, which is dolomitic.
I don't understand how they wouldn't both be faster acting than ag lime.
They are. But in terms of dolomitic pelletized lime, you still need a lot of it. Like it breaks down faster, but you still are going to only have that much active material. So if you need a ton per acre.
I'm assuming what I'm getting then is calcitic because the co-op guy is telling me that it's fast acting.
Okay, then it probably is.
But it's not that expensive. It's very cheap, actually.
So that'd be.
But I'm getting it in bulk. Like I'm getting it in a spreader, like not in bags.
I think the bags of calcitic fast acting lime, which is what people use on their lawns, is like $40 per 40-pound bag or $50 per 40-pound bag. Whereas the other stuff is like sub 10.
I wonder how much that has to do with brand and stuff too. Like
probably. I mean, if I go to Lowe's and buy a 40-pound, like I'm not going to get bulk ag lime at Lowe's.
Well, so here's what I ended up finding out. So the way that I found this out was I called. His name's Brian Wyatt.
Mm-hmm.
He's a kid actually. He's like 20. He's surprisingly young.
Yeah,
and he carries himself really well. When I asked him how old he was, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm like 23 or something."
He likes podcasts too, huh?
What? Oh, he's all about it.
I love that.
He's like, "You talk to who? Jeff Sturgis?" He's like, "That's amazing.
That's awesome." Bill Winky's on your podcast.
Funny. He shot a big, like, mature 6-point last year. And so I asked him. I said, because he works for the State Department, he has lots of dealings with farmers, landowners, as well as hunters. And I said, dude, what's the deal with this? Like, do you understand what the difference between these two types of lime are? And here's what I'm trying to do. Like, what do you recommend? And he's like, yeah, no. He's like, give me a call. I'll help you out. And so the way he explained it to me was that, first of all, he didn't understand that there's two different types of pelletized lime, which I'm trying not to read too much into.
Mm-hmm.
But basically what he said is that ag lime is a powder, and it typically is what soil samples call for. And it takes
everything's done in ag lime, dolomitic.
Yep, and it breaks down over a period of 2 to 3 years.
Correct.
And won't be available to the plants for a minimum of like
6 months. Yep.
So he says the process for creating pelletized lime is that they take ag lime, this powder, and grind it even finer.
Yes.
As much as like 10 times finer.
And then press it into the pellets. Which is the same process as liquid lime. They grind ag lime down, then they dilute it in water to create liquid lime, but you still need hundreds of gallons per acre if you're needing 2 tons per acre of ag lime. That's it will be available faster. So maybe instead of 6 months, it's available in 6 days.
Well, see, that's where it seems
weeks.
like the confusion is at least for me, is in the absorption rate. It's like,
I think all of the pelletized and liquid stuff is absorbed and available faster.
Yep.
But the material, which is what changes pH and things like that, or the available calcium parts per million in the case of plot start, isn't enough. Wow. Because it's still the amount of material per acre.
Well, but it's used over a shorter period of time. And so I think you just have to reapply it It's still not the same amount. But yeah, so let's say this ratio is maybe a little off, but let's say it calls for 1,000 pounds of ag lime, which is a little less, but 1,000 pounds of ag lime.
Half ton of ag lime,
per acre. That would be like a prescription for like what do you think it is? 3 or 4 years? 3 years?
3 years.
Whereas with pelletized lime, it may only call for 300 pounds. Essentially, would be the equivalent.
It'll be done in the growing season,
and it will be in that year. But you have to apply it
every year.
So over the course of 3 years, which would be the lifespan, you end up applying
almost 1,000
pounds, almost 1,000 pounds.
Makes sense. I think you could get away with the long term though with a fast acting because it is more calcium based, but it's more expensive. So you could put 300 or 400 pounds of calcitic fast acting lime down, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. But it will be good probably for 2 or 3 years. Because what your pelletized lime and or liquid lime
is ag lime calcitic or
no, dolomitic. That's your traditional pelletized lime, traditional liquid lime. Everything is dolomitic. There's only fast acting lime that's what it's called. Fast acting pelletized lime.
I'll have to ask what I got, what I ordered. So I talked to Brian. He said, do this. I called the Farmer Exchange in Carrollton, and I just straight up told the guy what I wanted to do. I said, hey, I have a guy that told me that you guys rent spreaders and that you can kind of advise me on what type of lime and stuff I need. I said, here's my issue. I can't find a guy to come spread ag lime. He's like, no problem. He's like, this is an easy one. I was like, okay.
Cool.
So he's going to hook me up with a spreader that holds 4 tons of material. And he said, guys, come pick them up all the time. And they're F250. You can pick it up in a quarter ton if you have. And he's
filling that with pelletized lime.
He's filling it with pelletized lime.
How much?
Enough for 6 acres, which is, in fact, he quoted me at 300 pounds per acre first. And he's like, that's what I would recommend. I didn't know about this Dalcitic, or I didn't know to even ask that. But he's like, here's what I would recommend. Here's what I would do. And he also quoted me for fertilizer. He's like, do you want to fertilize at the same time? I said, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
He's like, I can mix it all in the same spreader. You can do it all at the same time. And he quoted me like $500 for 6 acres worth of stuff. I was like,
yeah, that's cheap.
I was like, dude, yeah. It's like, you're well within my price range. I said, would you beef up the lime at all? He's like, yeah, if you're going to spend a little bit more. He's like, yeah, let's bump you up to like 400 pounds an acre. He's like, that would be more than enough.
So I think that would get you through probably this growing season.
For 1 year. Yeah, it's one season's application.
Makes sense.
Freaking great option for me because I can get the spreader into our food plots. It's going to do what I needed to do in the first year. I'm fine reapplying it every year, and I'm going to complement it with deer growth, so it's going to have like an immediate response.
Well, and so that will be the interesting thing because if it's dolomitic based, there'll be calcium in it, but ultimately your plot start will add all the available calcium you need for your plants. So
I'm sure I'm getting some calcium from the fertilizer too. Or I don't know.
No, it's probably NPK.
NPK, yeah.
Yeah. So you'll get your calcium from your plot start.
I basically said, what was the guy's name? Henry. I said, Henry, dude, I'm a deer hunter, dude. I said, whatever you recommend, that's what I'm gonna do. So he's like, cool, I'll take care of you. Yeah. I feel taken care of.
Yeah. He's like, listen, if you want to go and pee on those plots every once in a while, that'll help too.
There's you know where I'm planting that soybean plot down at Ray's.
Good one down there.
The spot. And there's
you have cameras running on your place?
Not yet. There's a big scrape tree. It's real prominent. You know where I've been getting pictures of down there? We're gonna kill buck off that plot. I'll almost guarantee it.
Yeah, that's a good spot.
As long as there is a buck there to kill.
Can't kill bucks if they're not there. Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing because as we get into this planting stuff, and man, it's been like, I know a lot of guys have got beans in the ground already. I don't think that soil temp's up high enough. Maybe it's getting there now.
Who was that? What's the landowner over there in Ohio?
Bob?
Yeah, Bob was telling me that they've got something now that like it doesn't matter. They just plant it and it just stays dormant. For soybeans. I don't know if it's coating or a breed.
Yeah, because it used to be 60 degrees up. Is it what you're looking for? Consistent 60-degree soil temp.
60? Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know. I haven't even looked at mine, unfortunately. That plus all the rain we've been getting has just been
Man, I'm still kind of torn on what to do with these fall plots because like brassicas seem like the staple, but it's hard to plant anything with them. And I really want to try rye. I just don't know how rye and brassicas are going to do in the same plot. I could do half and half, but I don't really want to do that either.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would assume you do really light brassica if you do wheat or rye as a whole, just so like it's sporadically spaced in there.
Yep.
Because I think they'll outcompete that rye pretty hard, or vice versa. I don't know. I am in the same boat. I like my brassicas in some aspects. I hate them in many aspects. Not necessarily because of the food and nutrition aspect, but from the hunting side. I just, every time it's hitting, it's missing Pennsylvania seasons at least. So, Ohio.
When do you plant rye?
September 1st.
Yes, his beans are still going to be green. I thought I had an idea there for a minute.
I mean, that's what I'm going to plan on doing. I'm going to go in there and just rye the hell out of them.
Buckwheat.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean,
This would be a perfect combination, dude. Because I'm planting some of these big bean fields. If I could go in and plant rye into those in September.
Yep.
And then just plant brassicas in my other spots, that would do the trick.
Good.
I don't think so. I think the beans and the
seeded out.
Beans will still be too green.
Shaded out.
Yeah. Yeah, because they stay green into October.
Yeah. You could do it in later September.
I still think they're pretty green, like not super great.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I don't know what to do with that.
I think it's a lot of experimental type stuff, to get in and see what we can do here. Because again, from an attraction standpoint, from bringing deer in, brassica's done great. It's fed them. It's just in Pennsylvania, usually in the second or third week of November, season's out, doesn't come back in until after Thanksgiving or week of Thanksgiving. And like they crush them in that gap. And then rifle season opens for the kids on that food plot.
And you want to have something attractive in October.
Yes, and it's not. Like we've hunted that plot in October and there ain't a deer touching it. I got 4-foot tall brassicas because there's no deer in it. So I need to make that adjustment this year. Not to say that I won't have some brassica plots on places that I hunt, but like it just seems like I consistently am missing, or they're hitting it in that window, which is stupid for Pennsylvania, but we have that gap of no hunting, and it just, that's when they hit it. And I'm sure in certain weather conditions it'll happen earlier and maybe you catch the last part of bow season, or it happens later and you catch it perfect during rifle season, but literally they'll wipe a plot out in a week. They'll just mow it. So
I don't know.
I feel like Jeff's rye strategy on smaller plots is really attractive to me because it's a lot of volume. Like they're not going to mow that thing. And if you get any warm weather, it starts growing again. Whereas like a small quarter-acre, half-acre brassica plot, in my opinion, will get mowed. Thus, like, I don't want to plant that. If I'm planting an acre or more, knock yourself out. You plant an acre of brassica, and I think you're set. Those deer aren't going to mow that thing down.
Yeah. I've never really had that issue. Like my brassicas usually do pretty good.
I think you have a lot of food on your property.
Yeah.
I don't. Like plots and acorns.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of ag and standing corn in some cases, or even cut corn in some cases.
Yeah, just other food sources. A lot of browse, a lot of TSI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing with that. I'm real excited about these bean plots, though, especially that one down.
So did you spray?
Raise. No, I think I'm going to go Friday.
Friday spray. That's a good one.
I'll spray Friday. And then so the process will be they've got my order. So said and done, that's going to cost me like just short of $600 for
that's good.
And fertilizer and a machine to spread it for what I need for beans.
That's perfect.
So if you break that down like per acre, how much is it's $100 for a bag of beans? About is that right? So it's 100 plus 100 is about $200 an acre for beans.
That's pretty much what it should be. $200.
So I'm gonna go spray Friday, and then like 2 or 3 weeks. They just need like a 2 or 3 day lead time to make sure they have that spreader for us. So I'll call them when I'm getting ready to plant, and then I'm gonna go in and We'll get it on the site, and we'll disc.
Mm-hmm.
I'll turn the soil over. We'll lime and fertilize, and then I'll broadcast seed, and then we'll call to pack, and then I'll deer grow.
Mm-hmm.
I'll start. That'll be the process.
It's a good plan. I like it. I like it.
I've done really well broadcasting beans in the past. It works very good.
I think they've done well. Yeah, I mean, people are very drill-based, but I think that's a good way to look at it.
I do like a drill. I just don't have access to a good one. The state leases them out, but it's garbage.
Yeah, and hit or miss in terms of scheduling a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. What's next for us? Well, we probably need to get a guest in next week. I'll book somebody.
I want to talk to Eldridge. I'd like to get some bows moving.
Maybe we'll bump him again, see what we got going on.
I want to talk to Nate from base camp at some point.
Yep, I'll see what they want to do on some things.
Will be cool to talk to. We need to get probably Duncan in from GSM at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever those guys get some inventory, we need to start getting some.
Yeah, I know.
It's gonna sneak up on us here, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost. It's mid-May.
I know. It is mid-May. I mean, we got antler growth going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to get my hands when they come in on some of these new Fusion X cameras too.
We need some rain out west. We need, just be dancing. Start dancing, I guess, we need rain in the Dakotas.
If you're in any of the Dakotas, start rain dancing.
Sounds like our permission out on this one place is kind of contingent on it, which is interesting. This is the kind
it's
of
a fire
first
thing,
that I'm hearing about a fire hazard, but
that broadhead hits that bow in the right way.
Yes.
Light her up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of weird.
There's a spot on my wall that's just dying for 2 mounts.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bare. It's bare, naked.
Double D's.
Yeah. I watched Dukes of Hazzard the other night. Speaking of that.
Daisy Duke.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's a great movie. You should rewatch that. The dude that plays Billy Prickett, the racing dude, is real funny.
Yeah.
I forgot about him.
It's a good movie. Well, I guess that's going to do it this week for HUNTR Podcast.
We missing anything?
I think we
are pretty well covered. Yeah, man. Just
keep on plugging.
Well, yeah, we're just going to, I think I'm going to keep doing some work on Dakota landowners, South Dakota landowners, figuring out.
I'll work on our bows a little bit here.
Keep working on that. I got my hunt rooms coming together a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I feel.
In fact, tonight I'm driving back. I told you to
get those
my stomping grounds, get some crates, and I need to find like a hardware table, and I got my washer and dryer hooked up now, so
clean clothes,
washing all your guys' hunting clothes.
Yeah, Jared's pretty paranoid about that. Best wash your clothes.
I'm paranoid. I'm just prepared.
Forceful
preparedness is key.
The clothes still smells fresh. Better wash it again.
We need to lock down a camper in South Dakota.
Maybe, let's see, 12th, 19th, probably not next podcast, but the podcast after that, we should have word of Kansas officially.
Okay. We're going to have to go back out at some point.
Yeah.
In, I don't know when.
August.
Yeah.
Probably.
The one I really want to get to is Hobart's Corner. I want to get that trimmed out.
So I'll be there. We are going there end of July for Whitetail Properties National Meeting. We're going to be in St. Louis, and I thought we'd buzz it from there.
Yeah, that's probably the way to do it. End of July, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So, well, we'll just keep everybody updated. We appreciate all the support, getting some good comments and some feedback on some stuff. So, y'all keep that coming. That's good to hear. And
hopefully I can sleep between now and then, dude. When I start getting too excited about hunting, I don't know. This is the best time of the year, though. Well,
it's getting close.
It's getting there.
We're real close. I mean, now that we're seeing significant antler development, that's making me twitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we'll be on the farm Friday.
That'll help.
Probably drop some minerals. Maybe I'll get a camera or two running.
Maybe throw one on Bob's. We'll see.
Okay.
Cool. Well, we appreciate everybody listening to the HUNTR Podcast this week, and we will catch you next time.
Later.
Take me